This is Smith's plays Pokemon. He apparently has a solution to Gen 2 Pokemon's biggest issues. So let's take a look.
The single biggest issue with Pokemon Crystal is, in my opinion, the level curve of gym leaders and trainers in the second half of Johto. The game poses a reasonable challenge up until the player defeats the fourth Ghost Gym leader, Morty. But it's at this point the game stops being linear and things get messy. At this point, players can choose to head west towards the ocean to take on Chuck as the 5th gym leader, but alternatively, one can choose to head east and fight Price first. Now, most Gen 2 fans view this positively as it allows for more replayability. But the problem with this feature...
Yeah. Yeah,
is that both routes are...
I really don't have that much, but like there is a canonical like route that you could take. For instance, like Chuck is the next strongest gym leader. After Morty. And I don't get me wrong, but I believe the Johto order is Faulkner, Bugsy, Whitney, Morty, Chuck, Jasmine, Price, and Claire. I'm just going off memory, so
scaled to act as the 5th gym. If you fight Chuck first, his level 30 Pokemon will be adequately scaled. But then after going through a slew of trainers in the east, Price's team only caps 1 level higher. The problem is by the time you get to Price, you'll be so much higher leveled that the fight is super easy. Things become even weirder as Jasmine, who is typically fought as the 6th gym leader, is even stronger than Price, capping at 35. It's a giant mess of a problem. And the question we have today is, how do we fix it? I'm making my own Gen 2 ROM hack, which is attempting to make
well, it's cool
fixes to oversight.
Yeah, I would be interested in that.
Such as the level curve, while staying true to the original vision of Crystal. In this video, I'm first going to explain my solution that fixes the level curve so that no matter what way we play the game, things don't get too easy in the later half. From there, we'll take a deeper dive into the trainers and levels, finally wrapping up with the updated gym leader teams. This is a subscription checkpoint, so right now would be a great opportunity to help me get my silver play button. But to put my solution in simple terms, here it is. The levels of these 3 gym leaders are going to vary depending on how many gym badges you have. You heard me right. In our ROM hack, Chuck, Price, and Jasmine are going to be leveled higher or lower based on what order the player chooses to fight them. Now, this change alone makes the Gen 2 mid-game significantly better, but this alone, unfortunately, will still not fix Crystal. And that's because the issue runs deeper than the 3 gym leaders. To better understand...
Yeah, you could theoretically do this, yeah. Depending on, you could put checks in place in order for the game to check how many badges you have whenever you potentially enter a gym, and thus tweaks the teams and difficulty accordingly. So that's not within the realm of possibility for somebody to actually make a ROM hack to do this.
Understand this issue, let's take a look at this graph to highlight the game's gym leader level curve. From Faulkner up to Chuck at level 30, you can see it rises very smoothly, with each gym leader getting roughly 5 levels stronger from the previous. But if the player fights Jasmine immediately after Chuck, there's this huge spike with no trainers to prepare for. What's worse is that then the 7th gym leader decreases in levels. It's also worth noting that the game then has to make up for this with a huge spike of 9 levels up to the final gym. Now, what my solution solves is that no matter what order you choose to fight these gym leaders, the player will see an entirely smooth level curve. Morty will still be roughly 25, and your 5th gym leader can either be Price or Chuck in the low 30s. This is where things change dramatically though, because the next leader you choose to fight, whether it be Price, Chuck, or Jasmine, will now be in the mid 30s. And from here, the final fight of these three will give you a team approaching the 40s. Jasmine will cap high 30s, Price will cap high 30s, you can even fight Chuck 7th and he will be capping at high 30s. And lastly, to accommodate for those changes, Claire will see an updated team capping at around 45. Now on paper, this sounds great, but there's one huge hole in this plan, and it's part of Gen 2's level.
There's not enough strong trainers to give out experience. That's the reason.
Curve that is a little less obvious. You see, there's an entirely other metric that we're not currently considering. The trainer level curve starts out very clean, basically staying 5 levels behind the gym leader all the way up to Morty. It's at this point that even on your Gym 5 route, things start to fall off a little bit, where the trainer levels are now feeling more like 7 to 8 levels behind the gym leader. Upon defeating Chuck, however, the gap then worsens once you head towards the eastern side of the map. You go from fighting a level 30 Polyrath to a 35 Steelix, and then upon heading towards the Lake of Rage, the trainers are all suddenly back at 15 to 22. As things continue, the levels do eventually pick up by the end of the Rocket hideout, but the damage is already done. The pacing is ruined, your Pokemon fall behind in levels, and without grinding, your team will fail to get anywhere close to the 8th gym leader.
Yeah, so this is actually artificial difficulty. It's basically you're stifling the resource that is experience for Pokemon leveling. That makes it difficult to adequately deal with the threat of the upcoming gym. And this can be semi-fixed with less Pokemon in your team, but then you won't have that many answers to threats in the Elite Four and stuff like that. So I get what he's like, where he's getting or where he's going with this. But like, I've also beaten Crystal with a Cyndaquil all the way up until I got to Claire. And I only did that because I wanted to get a flamethrower early on my Typhlosion. If I remember correctly, Cyndaquil learns it at 40 in Crystal, and then he learns, but if you evolve him into Typhlosion too soon, he doesn't learn Flamethrower until like 60. And the only other alternative would be to do the Goldenrod City Gaming Corner, get the TM. And I had no issue fighting Claire after that. So maybe I'm just an anomaly in that. I had adequate answers. But yeah. But I could see why it would be a problem if you were actually trying to build a team for the Elite Four. I totally do.
You'll be training your level 30 Pokemon against level 25 trainers to prepare for a fight against a level 40 Kingdra. It's a mess. So yeah, the level curve of Price, Chuck, and Jasmine is a problem, but it's really the underlying route trainers that are causing the bigger issues here. And so if we want to truly fix the pacing of the game, we also need to bring up the levels of these said trainers. Now, it took a good deal of coding manpower to even get these 3 gym leaders to dynamically scale. So there's no way we could possibly do this for the over 50 trainers that exist in the mid-game section. This means that while the gym leader teams will vary, we have to find a way to statically code the...
I'm wondering, like, is increasing the levels actually going to matter though? Like, there's a lot of trainers you can fight in Johto. And there is a lot of rocket grunts, like in Goldenrod City, Radio Tower, and Mahogany Town's secret base. I don't know if it is actually an issue.
Rest of the mid-game trainers so that no matter what route the player takes, the trainers will feel appropriately leveled. It's a little complicated, but now let's get into the details. For the most part, the early game of Gen 2 is scaled fine, and you won't notice any differences in this ROM hack. From the start of the game up to Morty, trainers are only going to see slight changes, with teams varying maybe 1 to 2 levels where I felt they were previously underleveled. Some teams have been modified to be a little more interesting, but my goal is to make sure it plays similarly. It's only once you defeat Morty and get Surf is where things get tricky, because we have to account for all of the traders in the areas of the Route 38 and Route 39 farmlands,
right,
the Lighthouse, the Ocean Routes, Route 42 and 40.
I actually forgot about the Lighthouse. There's like a dozen trainers in there that are pretty decently leveled for that area.
3, heading up to Lake of Rage itself, the Rocket Hideout, and both Chuck and Price's junior trainers. You see the dilemma here? If we keep these trainers leveled as they are in the original Crystal, they'll be too weak when the player has to backtrack to the set of routes that they haven't passed through yet. But if we crank the levels up too high, the player taking the first route to Gym 5 will face way too much difficulty. Our goal is to find the perfect threading of the needle by increasing the level curve so that the fights aren't too hard when you're on your first path, but not too easy when you backtrack to the other side of the region. Now, if we had a completely linear path, we just removed this option, which I feel like would be very anti-Gen 2, we could make a super clean level curve that would look something like this. But if we're going with non-linearity, and trust me, we are, it's non-negotiable for me, we need to take a better plan of action. And after discussing with a lot of my subscribers, it seems the
I think I know where he's going to be going with this. After Morty, it should be Chuck, Jasmine, and then Price.
best way to do this is to start from Morty with a more drastic spike than the player might be used to. That means the routes just after beating Morty, like the Lighthouse and the Path of the Lake of Rage, will see a more sizable jump. And to be honest, this will increase the difficulty. From here though, there won't be as much of a drastic increase as things continue. After a lot of experimenting, this seems to be the best approach. Rather than falling off, the mid-game starts to pick things up, and I like that for my Pokemon game. Overall, this makes the Gym 5 path more engaging while helping to keep the second path both relatively difficult and also XP yielding. Of course, no matter what we do, the second route will feel easier, but it's now in a spot that feels and plays much better. Now, I asked subscribers in a poll what their typical Gen 2 route was, and well beyond 80% of you said that Chuck is Gym 5. And since it's also the canonical route, this will be the route that scales the most clean. Now, the trainers on the farm route that you would typically fight before Morty anyway are going to just range from 19 to 21 rather than 16 to 20. But after beating Morty,
is it really that low?
At 25 or 26, the player can head to the Lighthouse, which will see Pokemon from 21 to 24 as compared to 16 to 21 originally. This is the fairly large jump I was talking about. It's more drastic than most curving in this game, but it works well enough to keep the mid-game consistently engaging. The player won't be completely overwhelmed if they head here before taking on Morty, but it will also serve as great XP in anticipation of fighting Chuck. Now, after the Lighthouse, the player will head through the two ocean routes of the map.
I think the other issue in that, like, a lot of the Pokemon in these routes don't yield a lot of XP anyway, so increasing their levels probably won't actually benefit them. Like, you're only increasing the difficulty itself. Like, the difference between like a couple of levels in certain Pokemon is like maybe between like 50 and 200, maybe 150 XP. Like, I don't think it's increasing it It's going to increase the resource of needing XP.
Normally, these trainers had Pokemon ranging from 16 to 23. Now, even in the original, this felt weak to me, and it always left my team feeling undertrained for Chuck. Like, these levels are averaging that of below the 3rd gym leader, so you can really see the problem for the player who already defeated Price and the Rocket Hideout. To fix that, we've gone ahead and scaled these levels to range from 23 up to 27. And lastly, before Chuck, there's the junior trainers of Cyanwood, who were previously leveled at 25 to 27. And we've basically gone ahead and added 2 to their levels across the board. Now, Chuck as Gym 5 is going to see his team of now 4 Pokemon range from 29 to 31 instead of 30. His Gym Team 5 is going to have a 30 Hitmontop,
Yeah, he needed more fighting types.
a 29 Primeape, a 30 Sudowoodo as the
What?
token rock type flying coverage fighter, and lastly his Poliwrath will be 31. So we'll call this western route the canon route for badge 5. We now need to look at the eastern route, and this has to be leveled such that the player who just beat Chuck doesn't feel bored through here, but we also must be extremely mindful of those who wish to take on the Lake of Rage, Rocket Hideout, and Price as their badge 5 route. To begin, route 42, which heads east of Ecruteak, is going to sit in a similar level range as the Lighthouse around 24. This will be a bit of a drop for Chuck 5 players, but it's a small route and needs to be there to scale smoothly for those doing Price 5. Here though, the route which heads north to the Lake of Rage
Okay, I see what he's talking about. All right.
is going to see trainers ranging from 25 up to 27. This area would previously Pokemon ranging from 15 to 20 and is essentially mirroring the level curve of the ocean routes. Equivalent to the Lighthouse, players doing the Price 5 route will probably see this a little bit tough. Now, Lake of Rage is a route that some forgot has trainers, but there are a few here, and
there
you
are
will
a
see
couple.
them get a slight boost as well, ranging from 27 to
There's like 5 or something, like some minuscule amount.
29. So as the Gym 5 route, this will definitely be the harder option, but I think it still feels good and provides a nice alternate route. As for the player coming from the Chuck portion of the map, the levels will feel super reasonable. From here, we finish up with the level 30 Gyarados, which is now feeling much more appropriately leveled, and turn our attention toward the Rocket Hideout. Previously, the first layer of the Rocket Hideout had the secret trap rockets, which were leveled between 16 and 18, and regardless of the route the player took, it was very easy. We've changed this so that the traps will see rockets with Pokemon on average at level 27. The rest of the hideout as well will see a similar level curve along with more interesting team builds. We're probably going to do
like
a full
10
video
levels.
explaining rocket
Yeah, 10 levels is pretty significant.
changes, so make sure to subscribe for that. Now, as for the 2 Rocket executives, they're both going to cap out at level 31, which is actually the same level as Chuck. This means Price 5 is actually going to be higher leveled than Chuck 5, as there are more trainers along this route, and so the player should be higher leveled. With the Rocket execs capping at 31, Price's junior trainers will range from 28 to 30, and his Gym 5 team will feature a level 31 Dugong, a 32 Sneasel, a 31 Jinx, and a 33 Piloswine Ace. I should also clarify that while you can technically fight Jasmine as the 5th gym leader, she isn't going to scale backwards for the player. Her badge 6 and 7 leveling will vary, but if you fight her as badge 5, you're just going to get the Gym 6 version of her. My reasoning for this is that it would be weird to make a version of Jasmine that is weaker than her original build, especially because Jasmine 5 is such a rare route that few people ever take. Now, with the
that's actually reasonable. I can agree with that.
2 possible Gym 5 routes covered, let's take a peek at the options the player has for Gym 6. Jumping back to our canonical route, upon defeating Chuck for badge 5, the most common choice the player will take is to fight Jasmine next. While this will always remain open as a potential option to the player, I'm going to try and incentivize them to not do this. Instead, I'm going to guide them towards defeating the Rockets first rather than taking her.
I was actually about to say, like, it would make more sense to do the rocket stuff after Morty. Because one, it's the closest city with a gym in comparison to Jasmine's and Chuck's cities proper. And there's usually like an extreme like dearth of rocket content in comparison to Um, it in between the Slowpoke Well and the Goldenrod City radio tower incident. So I think it actually so you get 3 badges by the time you finish the Slowpoke Well content, and then you go to Mahogany Town. So I actually think this is better. A better canonical route, in my opinion. But there really needs to be more rocket content in Johto. Like, I feel like they're severely missing out. Because outside of, like, the Slowpoke Well and the Mahogany Town secret base, and then the radio tower, like, there's no... Like, that's it. That's all the rocket content in Johto. So I feel like there needs to be more. Maybe he'll address it. I don't know. I would add more rocket stuff, in my opinion.
Her on immediately after Chuck. My reasoning for this is that Jasmine is canonically the 7th strongest Johto gym leader. Despite her placement on the trainer card, most people only fight Jasmine 6th because she's available and it's convenient. But really, Chuck into Price and then Jasmine is the properly level scaled route. So I'm not going to force the players to.
Yeah, if you were to go based off of levels, then yes, that would be correct. Like Jasmine would technically be the 7th gym leader.
To take any route, but I'm going to scale Jasmine such that it's in the player's best interest to clear the Lake of Rage and Rockets and then fight Gym 6, whatever that be. There's also an equivalency reasoning for this. If you fight Price as the 5th gym leader, you then have to go through the ocean anyway, fighting all those other trainers to get the secret potion to reach Jasmine. So level-wise and pacing-wise, it just makes more sense that no matter what way you fight Gym 6 and 7, you've cleared all the routes already. Now, to simply suggest this route to players, I'm first adding some lines of dialogue in the game to basically tell players that Jasmine should be fought 7th. In Olivine, both your rival and a random sailor will now mention that Jasmine is really tough, and upon healing Ampharos, she herself will mention that Steel type is really powerful and that you might want to beat Chuck and Price before trying your luck with her. Now, with the changed level curves, it's actually going to be quite logical to not fight Jasmine immediately after Chuck. Jasmine is going to be at level 36, but she now has 2 additional Pokemon, and this makes going from Price to Jasmine immediately a very difficult fight. While not impossible, the back-to-back fights will be difficult. Now, Price is going to be looking the exact same as Jasmine with 5 Pokemon capped at 36. So with equal scaling, the player is free to fight whoever they want. It's just going to be easier for them if they go through the rest of the trainer routes first. Also, alternatively, Chuck's Gym 6 team is also going to be on par at level 36. This team will see a level 35 Hitmontop, a 35 Sudowoodo, a 34 Primeape, a 35 Pinsir, which has been added, and a 36 Poliwrath. Now, I know this is information overload. I know it's getting complicated, so let me summarize quickly. We have the Western route, which will go through the ocean, fight Chuck for Gym 5, defeat the Rockets, take on Price or Jasmine for 6, and then defeat the other one as Gym 7. The alternate Eastern route will go through the Lake of Rage and Rockets first, fight Price as Gym 5, head through the ocean, fight Chuck as Gym 6, and then see Jasmine as Gym 7. This, along with fighting Jasmine immediately after Chuck.
I think the Eastern route is better. That's just me. Like, yeah, there is a difficulty spike for sure, but like I feel like that might be better.
Are the
in terms of like the canonical pacing.
Four routes that 99% of players will take. Now, what about the Gym 7 teams? All three of these Gym Leaders Badge 7 teams are going to see the exact same levels, with their first four Pokemon at level 38 and their ace capping level 39. Since in nearly every route, the 7th Gym Leader is going to be fought immediately after the 6th, it didn't make sense to do a full 5 level jump, and so 3 levels feels like enough. So first off, we have Chuck as Badge 7, which is definitely the least common outcome. His team will lead with a 38 Hitmontop that knows Pursuit for psychic coverage, a Sudowoodo with Rock Slide, Feint Attack, and Thunder Punch to cover Flyers, Psychic, and his own weakness in Water types. He'll have.
I feel like that's super weird. Like, why not have a Hitmon? Yeah, like he's got a Hitmonchan. Like, why not have a Hitmonchan with the elemental punches? Oh, I see why. The elemental punches are special attacks in this gen. That's probably why.
Have his Primate now also knowing Dynamic Punch and Rock Slide to cover Flyers. In this hack, Bruno will be getting a Heracross, but I gave Chuck a pincer for his Gym 7 and 6 teams as I felt like it was another fighting bug that deserved a bit more appreciation.
Yeah, Heracross actually won't
be as good in the early gym variants, but this pincer will have Submission, Twin Needle, and Sword Stance. And lastly, his Poliwrath keeps Dynamic Punch, Mind Reader, and Surf, but his Gym 7 variant will have Ice Punch replacing Hypnosis to deal with the dual threat of Grass and Flying. Up next is Price's Gym 17, which is going to feature Rain Dance mechanics. He'll lead with a level 38 Cloyster, knowing Spikes, Surf, Aurora Beam.
Oh, because there's no hail mechanic in Gen 2. I forgot about that. I actually forgot about that.
Dance. Cloyster will only be present on the Badge 6 and 7 gym. Next is a Sneasel with Feint Attack, Metal Claw, Reflect, and Blizzard. After that will be a Jinx to cover 4 fighting types with Psychic and Ice Punch. Second to last will be Dugong, and finally Pilosline will come out as his ace, with the final moveset being Headbutt, Earthquake, Rock Smash, and Blizzard. Now, lastly, we have Jasmine, who, again, despite having equal levels, is going to be the strongest of the 3, simply because Steel is so good. Unlike the other 2 leaders, her movesets will see very little variation, in a further attempt to ensure she is the strongest regardless of the order she is faced in. Her team will consist of a Skarmory with Sandstorm, Drill Peck, Protect, and Mudslap, a Magneton with Thunderbolt,
Wait. They had Sandstorm in Gen 2, but not Hail? Nani?
Attack, Sonic Boom, and Thunder Wave, a Scizor with Slash, Sword Stance, Steel Wing, and Light Screen,
Scizor.
An Ampharos that is ambiguously perhaps not the Ampharos in the Lighthouse, with Thunderbolt, Light Screen, Thunder Wave, and Iron Tail, and a Steelix with Crunch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Iron Tail. And there you have it, guys. It was that easy. Gen 2 is fixed. It's a lot of information, but I promise these changes will be worth it in the ROM hack. If you're interested in following along more, I recommend joining the Discord and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.
All right. Is all that necessary? I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, I had Typhlosion. I would have a Lapras. I would usually go out of my way to get a Heracross. And what would be, like, what would have been the other, like, Yacht, maybe? I can't quite remember. But I do remember having less than a team of 6 in Crystal and not having an issue with the levels. But that could just be me. Is it necessary? Maybe. And this is another thing that I'm not quite sure if they even addressed with the Gen 2 remakes, the Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I just can't. I just can't think of anything. But hey, this was a good video. This was Smith Plays Pokemon. He's got a slew of other content, but I will send this guy over to you. If you liked what you saw, please consider giving him a like and a subscribe.